You ever get that feeling that we're living in a state of, I don't know, just perpetual crisis? It seems like everything from politics to the economy is just lurching from one emergency to the next. We never seem to learn, we never adapt, we just react. So what's going on here? Is this just a really long string of bad luck, or is it a sign of something much deeper, a fundamental structural failure? Well, today we're going to grab the tools of cybernetics to try and diagnose what's really wrong, and maybe even explore a blueprint for how to fix it.
And let's start with one of the most disturbing symptoms of our time, the lone nihilistic shooter. The profile has become just tragically familiar, right? Socially isolated, struggling, someone who's lost in a digital world because, well, the real one has completely failed them. They don't leave behind some grand political manifesto, they just leave a void. They are, as this analysis puts it, a total cipher.
And you know what happens next. After every single one of these tragedies, the debate immediately falls into the same old, tired tracks. Was it political? Was it fueled by some ideology? Or was it just a terrible outcome of a personal mental health crisis? We go back and forth, arguing, trying to cram this unspeakable horror into one of two neat little boxes. But what if both of those boxes are totally wrong? Or, at the very least, not even close to the whole story? What if these acts of individual despair aren't the cause of the problem, but a signal, a terrifying, complex signal, that the system itself is producing this despair, that the isolated person is actually a functional output of a system that is designed to isolate us? Okay, so to understand how that could even be possible, we have to zoom out and look at the state of the system itself. And, well, the diagnosis is pretty stark. We are trapped in a world of constant rolling crisis.
So this right here describes a state of what you could call catastrophic instability. Think of it like this. A healthy system gets hit with a shock, right? It might wobble a little bit, but then it finds its balance again. It learns something. But our systems, our governments, our economies, they're being hit by new shocks before they can even recover from the last one. And the result is this state of perpetual crisis management. It becomes literally impossible to think more than a week ahead, let alone plan for the future. And a system that can't learn, well, it can't evolve. It's just stuck.
So the big question is, why is this happening? The answer, it turns out, lies in a field called cybernetics, which is basically the science of control and communication in systems, and it has everything to do with something called variety.
This is the key to everything. Ashby's law is as fundamental to system science as gravity is to physics. It basically means that to manage a complex situation, your management system has to be at least as complex as the situation itself. You can't regulate a massively complex global economy with a handful of simplistic rules. It's impossible. Only variety can absorb variety.
So if the world's complexity, its variety, is absolutely exploding, any regulator, like a government, has two choices. Option 1, you can attenuate variety. That means you dumb down the problem, you simplify it, you pretend it's less complex than it is so your limited tools can handle it. Or, option 2, you amplify your variety. You get smarter tools, you become more complex yourself, and you rise to meet the challenge. Now, take a guess which path our current systems have chosen.
Yeah. This great squeeze on our potential happens in a few key ways. First, our thinking is totally trapped in these reductionist models, which means we only ever see bits and pieces, never the whole picture. Then, that flawed view gets hammered into us by our education and media systems, which act as these powerful filters, shaping reality to fit the old failed models. Meanwhile, our bureaucracies grow into these cancers that exist only to protect themselves, gobbling up resources and fighting any real change. And finally, the system defines its own truth and closes itself off, treating any serious challenge like a virus that has to be destroyed. This is how a system suffocates potential. This is how it manufactures despair.
Okay, so that's the diagnosis. And I'll admit, it's pretty bleak. But here's the good news. Cybernetics doesn't just diagnose the sickness, it gives us a blueprint for health. This is the incredible work of a man named Stafford Beer, and it's called the Viable System Model. Now, I want you to forget every top-down, rigid org chart you've ever seen. The VSM is modeled on living organisms. It's modeled on you. It's a recursive model, which is a fancy way of saying the same 5 core functions that keep you alive and viable also apply to a team, a company, or even an entire nation. We're going to build it piece by piece, but just think of it as a complete nervous system for an organization. It's a model for designing freedom and real effectiveness back into our institutions.
All right, we start at the bottom with System 1. These are the parts that do the thing, the factory floor, the sales team, you name it. The key is they must have autonomy, because they're the ones dealing with the complex reality on the ground. Then, to make sure there isn't total chaos, we have System 2, which provides coordination. And it's not a boss. Think of it more like a service, like a school timetable that makes sure two classes don't try to use the same science lab at the same time. Autonomy and coordination, working together.
Now we add management. System 3 is what oversees the inside and now, making sure the day-to-day operations are running smoothly. But, and this is so important, to stop it from being blinded by sanitized official reports, it needs a partner. System 3 star. Think of this as a direct audit channel, a direct line to the ground truth. It gets unfiltered information straight from System 1, completely bypassing the official chain of command. It's what keeps the whole system honest.
So while System 3 is looking inward at today, System 4 is looking outward to tomorrow. This is where your strategy, your research, and your planning happens. It's the organization's brain, constantly scanning the environment for threats and opportunities, modeling the future, figuring out how the whole thing needs to adapt to survive. It is the outside and then.
And this quote right here, it highlights the tightrope every single viable system has to walk. Honestly, this is where most organizations completely fall apart. If you focus only on today's operations, that's System 3, you become perfectly efficient at making something that nobody wants anymore. But if you focus only on future gazing, that's System 4, you go bankrupt developing brilliant ideas you can't actually afford to produce. Viability is all about that dynamic balance. And finally, we have System 5. Now this is not the big boss in the way we usually think of it. Its role is to be the system's conscience. It defines the ultimate purpose, the why we're all here. And its most critical job is to watch over and steer that delicate balance between the inside and now of System 3 and the outside and then of System 4, making sure the entire organization stays both viable and true to itself.
So, we have the diagnosis, and we have the blueprint. But now for the hard part. How do we get from here to there? Well, that requires nothing less than a revolution in how we think about organizations themselves.
A cybernetic revolution isn't about storming the Capitol building. It's got nothing to do with left versus right. Those are the old, low-variety categories that have completely failed us. No, this is about a fundamental redesign of our institutions, from the ground up, to make them viable, adaptive, and actually centered on human beings. So how do we do it? First, we have to start using technology not to control people, but to amplify their capacity and connect them. Next, we need what Beer called algorithmic feedback. Think of real-time meters showing public well-being, getting honest data on pleasure and pain, not just filtered polls. We also have to unleash our artists and thinkers to help us break out of these stale models. And most importantly, we have to redesign our systems to push autonomy down to the lowest possible level, down to where the information and the real expertise actually live. And look, if you think this is all just some abstract theory, it's not. In the early 1970s, Beer and his team actually implemented these ideas on a national scale in Chile. It was called Project Cybersyn. They created a real-time economic management system for the entire country using just 12 nested levels of this viable system model. It was a real-life attempt to build a nervous system for a country. It happened.
Which brings us right back to where we started. The nihilism, the isolation, that feeling that the system is failing, these things are not inevitable. They are the results of a design that is fundamentally out of sync with reality. We have the diagnosis. We have the blueprint. The only question left is, are we brave enough to stop just patching up the old, failing structures and actually begin the real work of designing new ones?